Spiers sees their role as being one where they're not just going to give the person the emergency relief and rely on them having to come back another time. We're going to give you the emergency relief, but we're also going to give you all of the tools to make sure that you'll never have to have the emergency relief again. I love that philosophy of, we're trying to empower you. We're trying to make sure you have the skills. We don't want to simply address the short-term problem that we've got and leave you to come back here another time and another time and another time.
Field, and how about the sector? So there's an alignment between you and the organization you're working with and the purpose. And how do you think the sector is doing at large? I think the sector is struggling. I have, when I was writing the state disability strategy, I came and spent a few nights out of the streets here in East Perth and slept with the homeless community to understand what they were going through. So I spent about a week just spending, the whole night and day there and really engaged with people with disability in the homeless community. Very simple thing. Bureaucracies that prevail mean that a person who's out on the streets who is disabled, for example, one of the persons I was talking to had his legs amputated because of diabetes. He can't get any NDIS funding because NDIS will not give you funding if you don't have a permanent address. Now, that's silly. That's really dumb. Now, I happened to raise that at an international conference, speaking at a International Federation of Aging conference out of Ottawa in Canada. And I raised this as an issue. And my counterpart in Ireland said, we've got it sorted in Ireland. In Ireland, the local post office has a series of post boxes for the homeless community. And they come and collect their mail from there. So why can't we do that? Why can't we have an agency? Why can't we have, let's say, for example, it's a group that deals with people with disabilities. Just have a number of boxes out there that they can come. So these people, this person with no legs, and the only reason he's getting around is because he happens to have a wheelchair that was given to him at the hospital 5 years ago, and he's never given it back. So I thought, wow, very ingenious in keeping that. But the wheelchair is completely useless. It is it's not designed for him. But he can't get one because he can't get NDIS funding. So it's those silly things that the bureaucracy gets in the way. That needs to change. We still need to start thinking in terms of, if we're trying to empower an individual, then we've got to look at what that individual needs and wants and design our systems to suit that person. You can't have a design of a system based on this one model because there'll always be outliers, and the outliers are the ones that require the most assistance. And the last question which I wanted to ask is, we have covered a lot of sectors and they have very common elements of, and we have designed as a country different sectors or different bureaucracies for different boxes. So you and I sit in the CALD box, and everybody has a box, and there's a funding stream of that box. So, but the underlying principles of human services is very similar. So how do you see, going forward in the next 20 years, 30 years, alignment of these service streams and then bringing it together to deliver purpose-driven human services models?
The years 2000 to 2010 were declared by the United Nations to be the years of human rights. And the purpose and the idea of that was to try and make sure that everyone had human rights education, we had human rights processes. And I think that's got to be the principle that we keep coming back to. Ultimately, it's got to be that. You're right in that you and I fall into that broad category called CALD, and yet there is so much diversity within that category that you could not say that that CALD group is like that CALD group. Classic example that our systems are designed and predicated on a white Anglo-Celtic paradigm is the fact that we only measure your place of birth.
we actually don't measure your ethnicity. On the census form, it asks you for your place of birth. So I don't fall into the Indian category.
Yeah.
I'm Singaporean.
Yeah.
But I don't identify as Singaporean. I identify as Indian. So I then struggle with what my boys are going to identify as. My boys were born here. My wife is Russian father, German Czechoslovakian mother, born in Australia. Married to an Indian Singaporean, and my boys are thoroughly confused. So my boys can, and the census form only allows them to pick two identities, two ethnicities. So they've gone obviously with Australian first because they were born here, and they had to choose between Indian, Russian, Czechoslovakian, Singaporean. Interestingly, both the boys chose Indian as their second, and the boys have both got Indian names and so on. So they chose Indian as their second ethnicity. But that's the level to which we go to in our census form. So our systems are predicated on that. Our systems don't take into account First Nations culture. Our systems don't take into account that myriad cultures that are out there. Our systems are based on the fact that this is the white Anglo-Celtic paradigm of how things are done, and any deviation from there is not funded, or you have to make the adjustment to fit into that rather than us making the adjustment to accommodate you.
Thank you, Suresh. Thanks a lot for sharing your valuable experience and insights. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.